Welcome everyone to Fraud Files Unleashed, where true fraud investigations meet captivating storytelling. I'm Austin, a seasoned fraud fighter with over 8 years of experience in both law enforcement and banking. Join me on a first-hand journey through real cases, offering insights into the dangers and intricacies of fraud. Whether you're a fellow fraud fighter or eager to learn about fraud prevention, I invite you to tune in. Brace yourself for a mix of knowledge and humor, and I apologize in advance because there's going to be a lot of dad jokes throughout this podcast. Let's uncover the secrets of fraud together. Episode 6. Shimmer and shine, it's card skimming time. This is still one of my all-time favorite arrests I ever made. This was truly a team effort, and I learned so much about credit card skimming in the process. I am so excited to dive into the details of this case with you. I hope you can learn something new in the process. So grab your cup of coffee and pack your bags. Let's jump back to November 2020. Here we are in the middle of November 2020. Fall is in the air. Well, at least as good as it can be for Central Florida. This is the one time of the year where things start to cool down a little bit, and the heat is not quite unbearable. At this point, I'm several years into my law enforcement career at the City of Altamont Springs Police Department, and I'm loving every minute of being a fraud detective. Fraud always seemed to peak around the holidays, so this was a busy time. I was swamped with cases, and I was just trying to survive till Thursday so I could enjoy Thanksgiving Day festivities with my family. It was already Wednesday, so I just needed to survive one last day. Before I knew it, 4 p.m. had arrived, and I was desperate to sneak out of the office. I could smell the turkey and dressing already. On my way home, I received a call from one of my buddies working patrol. They were on scene at a local credit union, and the ATM technician found indications that a Shimmer device and pinhole camera were installed at some point, but they had since been removed. Wait, Shimmer? Skimmer? What's the difference? Shimmers are devices typically shimmed inside of a card reader, and they grab your card data when inserted. They often look like very thin pieces of metal with a small circuit board and a magstripe reader on them. They are usually used on ATM machines, and they need to be paired with another device to capture your credit card PIN, like a pin pad overlay or a pinhole camera. So, we would consider the device used in this investigation a shimmer. A skimmer is typically installed internally on circuit boards, such as on a gas pump, and they skim the card data as it's being processed. There are also skimmer overlays that can be installed externally on gas pumps, ATMs, and even point-of-sale machines, but we will dive into those at a later time. Let's jump back into our fraud file here. When my brother in blue told me about the shimmer activity, I thought to myself, sweet. That's kind of cool and different. There was no details on how long the device had been there, and it would take a few days to get video surveillance pulled. Well, there wasn't much we could do at this point. We had no leads, and we would be stuck waiting a few days before we knew anything else. My buddy was gracious enough to take the initial police report, and it was assigned to me for further investigation. But that can wait. I need to get home and make some dessert so it will be ready for Thanksgiving morning. After eating dinner and making a batch of my world-famous pecan pralines, I drifted off to sleep. Well, world-famous is a stretch. It's just a recipe I found online. But anyways, here I am, sound asleep, about 12:25 a.m., when I hear a dreadful noise that no detective ever wants to hear. That was my bat phone, as we call it. When you are on call, you get these calls occasionally. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a road officer just has some questions about a fraud arrest, but other times you get stuck driving to assist with a large-scale investigation. Groggily, I answered the phone. Detective Harris? Yes, sir. How can I help you? Excuse me? I'll be on my way. What was going on exactly? Well, the Shimmer subjects were back and they were caught in the act of installing a Shimmer device. Wow. 2 Romanian subjects were currently being detained and they needed assistance conducting this investigation. Stuff like this never happened. How did patrol just happen to be in the area at the time? Well, funny story. Apparently, the local fraud investigator at the credit union decided to take action into his own hands. He thought it would be a good idea to do some overnight surveillance in order to monitor the ATM. Well, that's bold. It gets better. While surveilling, he saw the subject tampering with the ATM, so he called the police. But he didn't want them to damage the ATM, so he confronted them before the cops were on scene. I certainly would not recommend this, but thankfully for him, this did work out. Honestly, usually I wasn't a fan of being woken up from my beauty sleep to deal with a call-out. But this one excited me. I didn't even have time to grab coffee on the way. I did call up a few other detectives, though, to see if they wanted to join in and make this a party. To which a few of them obliged. Within 25 minutes, I was pulling up on scene to several cop cars with lights on, surrounding a blacked-out Jeep SUV. That would be our subject's classy ride. The bright lights make it hard to see at night, but my eyes adjusted fairly quickly. As I jumped out of my unmarked Camry, I can see 2 detained Romanian middle-aged males, decked out in Adidas jumpsuits, and sitting on the curb in this business plaza. The first responders on scene had already obtained IDs from the individuals who were identified to be Alexandru and Christian. This was not the real names, but for the life of me, I can't remember them. Both subjects were already patted down and had no shimmer devices or tools on them. After attempting to speak with Alexandru and Christian, it was very clear communication was not going to work. We were going to need a translator because they spoke full Romanian, and I did not know a single word in their language. My English is a struggle as it is. Thankfully, we had a deputy who was able to join us to help translate so we could start the interview process. I'll be honest, interviewing with a translator is challenging. It's much harder to build rapport with your interviewees, and you do rely primarily on the skill set of your translator. Thankfully for us, we had a true professional on our hands. So here's a summary of how that went. Before we begin, I just want to read you your Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. I, dreptul satachi. Impressed by my Romanian? Well, that one's courtesy of Google Translate. Anyways, they were both read their rights and agreed to speak with us. They both traveled here from Romania to visit the mouse, Mickey Mouse. They were staying in Florida for a few weeks. One night, they stopped by a bar and were approached about making some extra money. They were given some ATM shimmers, free of charge, shown the ropes, and told which banks to target. They claimed they were giving all of the card dumps with the card data on it to their recruiter. They also claimed they had never done this before and this was their first night on the job. Hold up. You guys think I was born yesterday? Granted, I did look like a 12-year-old kid at the time, but still. Installing a shimmer is a pain in the butt. You essentially have to shove this device into a ATM card slot with a metal tool, and it's not easy to get it seated correctly. Also, Romanian groups are very frequently associated with organizing ATM shimmer attacks. There's more to the story here, but they just aren't being 100% cooperative. So, I asked Alexandru and Christian, what kind of equipment do you have in the Jeep? Nothing? Oh, okay, so you don't mind if we search it then. Awesome. Now it was time to see how truthful they were really being. This Jeep, it was actually a rental, registered to another Romanian individual who was not inside the vehicle at the time. This already gave us enough to tow and search the vehicle. But getting consent to search is always a plus. The registered owner wasn't driving, and the vehicle was being used in the commission of a crime. We called up the rental company and they confirmed they wanted the vehicle towed. So we had a tow truck en route while we began our search. Searching vehicles was one of my absolute favorite parts of the job. I didn't get to do it very often as a detective, but it was a blast. It's like playing hide and seek with adults. You're trying to hide your criminal tools, but I'm here to uncover them. We quickly realized just how much Alexandru and Christian were lying to us. Here's just a few of the items we uncovered from the depths of this rental vehicle. We found a shimmer seating tool found in the passenger door. This was used essentially to help get the shimmer into an ATM. Several other tools used for modifying ATMs, screwdrivers, files, a small crowbar, etc. Several pinhole cameras that were disguised inside of ATM light bars. Very crafty and very well hidden cameras. The camera was literally the size of a pinhole. We also found a brand new laptop that was opened with the box and a receipt nearby. Several USB drives, plenty of cash, and a few Mickey Mouse souvenirs. So they weren't completely lying about their love for the mouse. We can't forget my favorite find of the night though. A beautiful, glossy black Adidas tracksuit jacket. In the pocket, an ATM shimmer, some duct tape, and a shimmer seating tool. Huh. But how do we charge anyone with this device? Whose jacket is this? Well, it was a chilly morning in Central Florida, and Alexandru was shivering. He kept asking for his jacket, and now I knew why. He did not want us to find this shimmer. I pulled out the jacket and asked Alexandru, "Hey, is this your jacket?" And he knew enough English to say, "Yes." Score. So that must mean the shimmer is yours. I pulled out the shimmer and his heart sunk. He looked down in desperation. I didn't need a translator because I could read guilt all over his face. Alexandru and Christian were transported to the Seminole County Jail, and the vehicle was towed. Here I am stuck dealing with all the evidence now. Packing up evidence in law enforcement is a bit of a process, and it's not necessarily fun. While we had enough evidence to make the initial arrests, I still had a lot of follow-up digging to do. Thankfully, we had such a great team effort on this scene. I was so happy how everyone worked together to make things go so smoothly. Now that the arrest was being made, my clock was ticking. After all, they have a right to a speedy trial. I wrapped up packaging all the evidence around 4:40 a.m., and I had plenty of follow-up to do. But that would have to wait until after Thanksgiving. Monday rolled around, and I was showing up to the office with a few extra pounds on me. That Thanksgiving feast was glorious. I had way too much turkey and way too many pecan pralines. Now it's time to start wrapping things up with this investigation, though. I started working on the search warrants in order to have our forensics team dump the shimmer, USBs, cameras, and laptop data. I also went ahead and contacted the credit union investigator to see if they could pull up video surveillance for us. Surprise, surprise. They already reviewed video and found the subjects had been visiting their ATM nightly for almost a week, swapping out shimmers and pinhole cameras. These pinhole cameras take up a lot of memory and they have to be charged frequently, so this makes sense. They also found the same subjects had been placing shimmers on one of their ATMs located in Orlando throughout the past week as well. Man, these guys were busy. He pulled all the video surveillance for me and dropped it off at my office. Thank you, sir. At this point, everyone in the office had heard about the arrest, and some people suggested we should start wearing matching jumpsuits anytime we went out on call-outs moving forward. That idea never transpired, though. We often had terrible ideas, and we often had pranks that went a little bit too far. Especially if you left your office with your computer unlocked. That's fair game. After I grabbed my video surveillance for this case, I noticed a fellow detective left his computer unlocked and I could not help myself. I quickly jumped into his email settings and modified his signature so that his name was just so slightly misspelled. He didn't catch on to this for nearly 6 months. And he only caught on because a victim replied to his email and spelled his name incorrectly. Classic. Office shenanigans were the best. The rest of this week, I was focused on getting these search warrants approved. Going back throughout the week, making edits and adjustments, it was time-consuming and tedious. but they finally got approved and signed by the judge. I pulled the devices from evidence and forensics started working their magic. They found hundreds of card numbers that had been compromised on the USB drive and the Shimmer device. They also dumped the video from the pinhole cameras, which showed all the victims entering their card pins on the keypad. Oof. Sounds like I'm about to stack some extra charges on these guys. The only bad news? The laptop was not able to be dumped. The files were corrupted or something, I don't know. I'm not in forensics. Either way, we had enough info to wrap up our investigation, and that's all that mattered. The intricacies of fraud have always captivated me, especially when you get your hands on a fun case like this. While ATMs have stepped up some of their security over the years, there's always a chance that they can still be compromised. Whether you are an investigator or a consumer, I hope this has given you some insight into how this technology works. Want to protect yourself from ATM shimmers? Look for small pinhole cameras. Cover your pin with your hand. Pull on the pin pad to make sure there's not an overlay present. But most importantly, if you see something funky, say something. And there you have it, fraud fighters. Don't let your guard down the next time you are at an ATM, and if you see something, say something. Join us next time as we delve into the world of financial intrigue, exposing the tricks of the trade while sharing a laugh or two. Remember, not all heroes wear capes, some wear accountant badges and detective hats. This podcast is presented by Fraud Warfare. If you are interested in supporting us through promoted ads, please connect with us on LinkedIn. Please share this podcast with a friend or family member, and be sure to leave us a review if you enjoy listening to the Fraud Files. You can also support us financially through our buymeacoffee.com/fraudwarfare page. 100% of these funds go towards improving the quality of our podcast and, of course, some coffee. Thanks for listening.